Right. Yeah. Whoops. Welcome, everyone. Before we begin tonight, we will have a prayer from Councilman Spencer, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Amen. And I would like to take a moment after this prayer to also remember a member of the Lincoln University family, a student who passed away yesterday, and have a moment of silence for student Dominic Dudley Moore. Please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you, and our hearts and prayers go out to the Lincoln University family. At this time, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Welcome, everyone. I will now call to order the Monday, September 20th, 2021 City Council meeting. You can join this meeting virtually if you go online to jeffersoncitymo.org. There is a link on the agenda there and also the call-in participation information. Mrs. Donaldson, roll call, please.
Fitzwater.
Present.
Hensley.
Present.
Kemna. Lester.
Here.
Schreiber.
Present.
Spencer.
Here.
Spicer.
Present.
Vogt.
Here.
Ward. Here. Wiseman.
Present.
Item 3, is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 4, we have several fun and informative miscellaneous agenda items. We'll start with the pandemic update. I'll see if we have on the line Ms. Chesney Schulte from Cole County Health Department. Are you on with us, Chesney?
Yes, I should be. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, yes.
Okay, wonderful. Well, I want to take this opportunity to share a resource that's available by the Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services. The website that I'm going to be sharing on my screen is found at the DHSS website. You'll have to let me know if this is working for you, okay?
I don't see it yet. There it goes. It's starting to screen share.
Okay,
There,
perfect,
it's up.
perfect. So here you'll see just health.mo.gov. And if you go over to this right-hand column, there is this how do I learn about COVID-19? If you click there, you'll see a purple box titled the COVID-19 dashboard. And then you can see this view public health data. So at that time, I'm going to open this screen. This is incredibly helpful so you can explore statewide data or county specific data. Use this dashboard to focus on overall trends rather than day-to-day variations in reporting. So if you can select Cole County, and you can see here that the 7-day DHSS reports 107 people tested positive for COVID-19 by PCR. Scroll down here and you can see here that Cole County is ranking number 62 in the state for cases per 100,000 people in the last 7 days. So you'll see that number 1 is going to have higher individuals testing positive on any given day. Cole County ranking 62nd is very good. Boone County, for example, is ranking 52nd. They're reporting a little bit higher volumes of people testing positive per day. So that's a great chart to be able to reference. Also down here at the bottom, you'll see the status. Oh goodness, I've switched counties. I apologize. User friendly when you're not on the spot. So down here at the bottom of the screen, you can see the status of COVID-19 in Cole County. So a great quick reference to see how we're doing here and how you can track our progress. One thing I'd like to mention is that the positivity rate over the last 7 days has decreased to 8.7%. And that puts us back down in the orange zone. So we're happy to be slightly decreasing in the positivity rate that we're seeing. And that ranks us number 90 out of the 117 counties or jurisdictions across the state. So just wanted to introduce you to that site. That way you guys can reference your own information there. We're cautiously optimistic that the number of new cases and the number of hospital admissions related to COVID-19 is decreasing. And this trend is being seen across the state as well. Cole County Health Department is in frequent conversations with the Cole County schools, and this partnership has proven to be very beneficial. We're very supportive of the decisions that they have made for their school communities. Please continue doing everything that you can to stay healthy, decrease your risk of exposure to illness, and decrease the risk of spread to illness to others. The Cole County Health Department will offer the Pfizer BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine on Thursday, September 23rd, from 9 a.m. until 3 p.m. Due to increasing demand of seasonal influenza vaccination clinics across the county and at Cole County Health Department, September 23rd will be the last day that COVID-19 vaccine is offered at this site. COVID-19 vaccine can be found at many locations across the county, including pharmacies and other healthcare providers. Here's a quick reference for vaccine locations that are available, and this can be found on our website. We expect that services will resume after the month of October, but please watch colehealth.org and our Facebook page for updates or call regarding clinic hours and availability of services. Seasonal flu vaccine will be offered at Cole County Health Department beginning the week of October 4th. At this time, that service will be available by walk-in only. And you can access the flu vaccine Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Friday from 8 until 3:30, or Thursdays from 9 until 3:30. Do you guys have any questions at this time that I can help you with?
Thank you, Ms. Schulte. And are there any questions of council? And thank you for sharing those websites. So the first website was the state website. So remind us what that website was again.
If you go to health.mo.gov, you can find it by accessing the dashboard there.
And then the second piece where it showed all of our local information about who is offering vaccines locally, that was colehealth.org, correct?
That's correct. That's right.
So be sure to bookmark those two websites. I know also on our call this morning, Community Health Center noted that they will be doing doing a vaccination clinic this week, so people could certainly reach out to them as well.
Yes, the community definitely has ample resources to access the COVID-19 vaccine. So if you have any questions about where that is available, feel free to reach out to Cole County, contact your local healthcare provider, contact a pharmacy in town. Odds are you will find it not too far away from you.
Great. Well, thank you, Ms. Schulte. And while we are happy to see that numbers are on the decline, we also realize we all still have a large responsibility to continue to encourage people to get their vaccine and encourage people to take those precautions so that we can keep those numbers on the decline, hopefully.
Definitely. We still need to help our hospital systems as much as we can. There's so many ways to do that. COVID-19 vaccination, flu vaccination, keeping yourself healthy, avoid contact with those who are sick. You know, there's a lot that we can do. So taking personal responsibility for those decisions is huge right now.
Great. Thank you for that update. Any last questions? All right. Thank you, Chesney.
Thank you. Have a great night.
You too. All right. Item B, we have a proclamation to present. So we have some people here from the Diaper Bank. We'd like to welcome them forward, and they can come to the podium and tell us a little bit about the Diaper Need Awareness Week. What do you have going on for that? Welcome. If you'd like to introduce yourselves and tell us what's going on this week.
I'm Katie Epema. I'm the board president for Capital City Diaper Bank, as well as one of the co-founders. Some of you may have been here back in 2017 when you first shared a proclamation for Diaper Need Awareness Week. We started as an organization receiving donations of diapers through a diaper drive and Pictures with Santa event back in December of 2015, mostly to benefit the Parents as Teachers program. We found there was a much wider community need for families to have access to enough diapers. Diaper need is the inability to supply enough diapers to keep an infant, toddler clean, dry, and healthy. Nationwide research shows that 1 in 3 families struggle with that, and we found that to be the case here in Cole County and Jefferson City as well. There are some wonderful resources that help provide diapers, but not enough to meet the demand that we are seeing from families. So in 2017, we incorporated. At that time, we were serving about 65 families. We gave away about 7,000 diapers that year with one partner agency. Now in 2020, we gave away over 70,000 diapers to over 650 families through 6 different partner agencies. So we're set up kind of like the food bank. We don't work directly with families. We partner with agencies that work with families so they can get assistance where they're already going, just to remove one less barrier for them. Thank you.
Well, that is fantastic. We appreciate the work you do in our community and appreciate you being here as well, Cynthia. And do you have any upcoming events or any way that people can donate if they want to?
We do. So Diaper Need Awareness Week this year actually runs September 27th. So starting next Monday, we'll have a volunteer diaper packaging event at our warehouse space on Tuesday. We can follow on our Facebook page. It's facebook.com/jcmodiapers or capitalcitydiaperbank.org if you're interested in volunteering that way. We'll probably do some fundraising events on Facebook with that as well. And then we hope to have what would have been our 6th, now 7th annual diaper drive and Stuff Santa Sleigh diaper drive and Pictures with Santa in December, pending where we are with the pandemic, of course. We were unable to do that last year.
Wonderful. Well, we will certainly try to support and raise awareness for that. And I'm happy to present this proclamation. And there's quite a bit of good information in here, but I will highlight a couple of things that are important that whereas that research shows that 1 in 3 families struggle with diaper need and 48% of families will delay changing a diaper to extend the available supply, and that it can consume 14% of a low-wage family's post-tax income, making it difficult to provide that necessity. And also that it is a public health issue, and addressing this can lead to economic opportunity for states, families, and communities, and improved health for children, ensuring that all children and families have access to the basic necessities required to thrive and reach their full potential. So for that and many other reasons, we will also declare September 27th through October 3rd as National Diaper Need Awareness Week in the city of Jefferson. So thank you for all you do for that. We'll come around and get a picture, but are there any questions before we do that? All right, thank you.
Everyone smile.
All right, and the next item we have is Guns and Hoses recognition. So would like to invite Aaron and everybody who's here for that recognition tonight as well. Well, this is a very exciting tradition, so tell us, give us a little overview of this.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, first of all, for letting us come up here and have a couple minutes. So I'm with JCMO Guns and Hoses. I'm one of five board members. One is right over here also. And then I have two firefighters that are players. The team guns, they are not here. They have previous other engagements, we'll say that. But yeah, Guns and Hoses, our biggest mission so far has been to support Safety Net, which is an incredible organization that supports police, fire, and other emergency services personnel that lose their life in the line of duty. So that's been our biggest thing so far. We're going to branch out to other, I guess, organizations, but that's our biggest one, and we're going to continue to support them as well. A couple of things have changed since we were here in 2019 here at this podium. First thing is that we have become an official 501c3 organization. So we're going to take that and run with it and hopefully support a lot more organizations locally in our community. Secondly, since the last time we were here, we also made our 2019 check presentation to Safety Net shortly after we were here. And that total in 2019 for a sold out game was $11,298.92. So this year we hope, and I'm very confident, that we will exceed that number that's going to go to Safety Net this year. So we have a few thank yous that we need to get out of the way first before we go any further. First, we have to thank Parks and Rec. They have been an incredible partner with us since the very beginning. They have been very supportive and helped us out in a lot of ways that people like me had no idea what I need to do because I knew nothing about hockey. We also need to thank Mayor Turgeon. Thank you for being our voice. You're way better with words than we are, so thank you. And of course, we need to thank the players. These guys put so much work into hockey, especially most of them didn't even know how to play hockey. So Team Hoses, I will say, practice a lot more in Team Guns. So I was kind of hoping they would win. Don't tell Team Guns that, please. But they put in a lot of time, a lot of hours away from their families. So thank you guys for all the support, all the work that you guys put out there. And of course, we have to thank the community. We would not have been a sold out game. We would not have the funds that are going to Safety Net without the community. The community has always been super supportive of firefighters and police officers, and we cannot thank them enough, and we will forever be thankful for that. So thank you to the community. And like I said, I think we're confident we're gonna do better than we did the first year. So thank you guys so much for letting us come up here and take a moment of your time.
Thank you for that and all your work. If somebody did not get a chance to buy a ticket or donate, what can they do now to still give to Safety Net and give to your cause?
Well, we do have a website. It's www.jcmogunsandhoses.com, and there's a donate button there. And all that money will be collected and will, at the end of the year, when we have our hockey game, be given to whatever organization we choose. Like I said, right now it's Safety Net, and that's probably what we're going to continue with for a couple more years at least.
Wonderful. Are there any council questions? All right, it was an excellent game, and it's exciting, and it's just drawing more and more attention every year. People enjoy it. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilman Spicer. Sorry, Spicer.
You guys do like you do a silent auction or anything?
We did have one silent auction this year, and that was for amphitheater tickets to a show of their choosing. So we did have one this year during the game, but we have not done it otherwise, no.
Next year you get.
Absolutely. Put you down on my notebook here.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Great, we'll get started on next game. I like to
Absolutely.
hear that enthusiasm. Let's make that happen. So keep this tradition going. Well, we're very proud of you all for what you do for helping families with Safety Net. And so really kind of surprised that Team Guns let Team Hoses bring the cup in here, and you all are the only ones. That's right, you're representing. So, but both Team Guns and Team Hoses, you all really were pretty amazing with this, and everybody worked really hard, and it was a lot of fun too at the same time. So thanks for all that you did. And with that, if you want to bring the trophy up, and we'll get a picture, and council can come up, and we'll celebrate this big victory. This is also an exciting thing that we get to recognize here. Jefferson City Fire Department as the fastest firehouse at the Stephen Siller Tunnel to Towers 5K. So we're really happy to retain that trophy. So we'll start with Roxpool to give us an update, and let's have this great recognition.
Mayor Turgeon. This year, our Jeff City, Missouri Tunnel to Towers Foundation 5K was our 6th year that we've had this event in Jefferson City. It was by far our largest year. Oh yeah, and we're showing a video on the screen of our start of the race. We had 330 registered volunteers and participants, which is 132 more than we had last year. So it was just, awesome is all I can say, that many people from the area came out and wanted to honor our first responders and military. One of the things I wanted to mention is that, we do hope we keep the momentum going for 9/11 survivors, families that lost someone. It's not just the anniversary each year is not just on a 5th, 10th, 20th year, it's every year. And it's very important to us that we honor those first responders that died on that day, and all of the other people that were in the Twin Towers and the other buildings, as well as in Pennsylvania and the Pentagon. So we want to make sure that we continue to honor them every year here in Jefferson City. I wanted to share a little bit with you in case you don't know about the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. In 2020, 250 mortgages were paid or homes were built for either a catastrophically injured veteran that needs a special home to be able to live a life independently, to a Gold Star family who lost one of the parents of children, small children, or a first responder killed in the line of duty, as well as in 2021, we've started a program that pays mortgages for families with small children when a parent dies from 9/11 related illness, because that is becoming a huge situation and problem. So that's the one thing that the foundation does, is wants to provide mortgage-free homes for families with small children to make sure that that surviving parent doesn't have that to worry about. This year, I am very honored to present the Fastest Firehouse Award once again to the Jefferson City Fire Department.
Yay!
And just because I don't want to leave anyone out, I got the names from my co-director, Michael Bainbridge. He could not be here this evening due to a family situation, but he provided me with the names. So we have Chief Schofield, who's here, Chief Holly, okay, Chief Holly, Captain Ryan Back, firefighter Clint Kemper, who also was our fastest firefighter in gear. As you would have noticed from the video, these firefighters, many of them ran in their full turnout gear. We also have firefighter Luke Owen, firefighter Ricardo Valcine, and firefighter Travis Milne. Now, one other award, before I give that award, I want to present to Chief Schofield, is our award for the department with the most participants. This year, Jeff City Fire Department had over 20 participants in the Tunnel to Towers 5K. So that was just awesome. We were very grateful for their participation.
Wow, congratulations.
Okay, and then this is Firehouse.
Great, we'll do that award. And does council have any questions or comments, or do any of you have anything to add? Chief, do you have anything?
It's not just firefighters that run it. We have a lot of community folks that really enjoy getting out and running or walking. Some take strollers, some takes, have police officers that would run in full gear. And really, honestly, if they want to run in hockey skates, they could bring the skates with them, maybe, I don't know. But, it seems appropriate, at least in the full ensemble. But no, it really is just a tribute to not only to Stephen Stiller, but also to, as a tribute, to the firefighters that we lost.
it was very impressive, and watching you all run like you did in the full gear was just wonderful. And having that kind of participation and being able to bring this trophy home again. I know that there were several events that day commemorating 9/11, and also later that day was the stair climb, the memorial stair climb, and there were several firefighters from Jefferson City Fire Department and all around the state, and others that participated as well. And several of you had full gear on, including you, Chief Schofield, too, and doing the stair climb. And I think it's wonderful that you all really lead by example, but also we think about what you do, doing your job every day, and just going in when others are coming out. And it really brings it home when you can witness that and watch you all with all that extra weight and just continuing to strive to get up all those steps or do that 5K or whatever you're doing. So we stand behind you and beside you in all of your endeavors that you do every day, being a firefighter and also our first responders and police officers. And we just can't thank you enough. But this is an exciting recognition. And again, we're so proud to have the fastest firehouse trophy. How many times now have we had this? 5. I mean, that's like, that is a huge deal. 5 out of 6. It's been right here at Jefferson City Fire Department. So that is huge. Congratulations on that effort. I don't know how you all do it, but that is just absolutely incredible, and highest respect for all of you and what you do. So. Surely not.
A lot of good nature competition is always
Right,
good, and we would
right.
encourage that to any team across the state that would be interested in coming in next year. So I would also mention in the stair climb, just while we're talking about that, Mayor, you've kind of developed quite a following there as well, and a reputation as the only one climbing in high heels. I know you only intended to do one flight, but you did the whole flight.
All 110.
All 110 stairs. So we appreciate that too.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's an honor. Thank you very much. Well, let's get a picture with this awesome trophy.
Sorry, one more.
Awesome. They make us so proud. That's wonderful. And I'd like to invite Mr. Mel Kalau to come to the podium. He's going to give us a real brief announcement about an upcoming Postmark conference. Sure, we can pass those out for you, and then you can speak in the mic, and that way we'll hear everything. Awesome. Thank you, Mel. All right. Thank you. You may want to pull that mic up so they can hear. Yeah, perfect.
Oh.
Thank you.
How about that? Better?
Perfect.
How about that? Better?
Perfect.
Okay. Due to COVID, we didn't have it in 2020. And this year, in spite of COVID, we're going to have our, I think, 75th anniversary of our Postmark Collectors Group, of which my wife is part of. This got started 3 years ago in Virginia when they said, well, we've been to Kansas City, been to St. Louis, drank Budweiser, but we've never been to the state capitol. I volunteered and my wife kicked me. She's still kicking me. But a bunch of folks from around the eastern 2/3 of the country primarily will come to Jeff. They're going to look through tables full of these 2x4 slips for a postmark that they may not have in their collection. Could be where they were born. It might be an anniversary of a son being born. Who knows? And as part of that, we also commission a local piece of art that we sell at the convention. And I've sent some samples around. We use Jim Dyke. Most of you haven't heard of Jim, but he's a pretty fair artist. And so he's doing the cachets, which we do sell at our convention. So we'll be here essentially for activities Thursday and Friday and Saturday morning at the plaza. It's we don't charge the public to come in and sit at these tables and look through all these 2x4s, trying to find their hometown where they may have been born. Maybe it's, Ankeny or somewhere out of a state, or maybe it's in, Jefferson City, or even some of these other communities. So be happy to have you come by. There's no charge for that. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions? Well, thank you for raising awareness for this and people to Jefferson City for it. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mel. Wonderful. All right, and the last under our miscellaneous agenda items, I do have in the audience Melissa Strath from Camdenton, who has a special recognition for our own city clerk, Emily Donaldson. So we did not put this on the agenda, the beautiful flower and the recognition. How nice, beautiful. So welcome, Melissa.
Turn this down. So good evening, Mayor and members of the council. My name is Melissa Stratt. I'm the Deputy City Clerk and Treasurer for the City of Camdenton. I am the Central Division Vice President and Public Relations Committee member for the Missouri City Clerks and Finance Officers Association. My purpose in being here tonight is to recognize your City Clerk, Emily Donaldson, for having been awarded the designation of Missouri Registered City Clerk. This certification is a combination of education and experience and is to be commended for her dedication in achieving this goal. The Missouri City Clerks and Finance Officers Association has a membership of approximately 516 clerks and is dedicated to the education of city clerks and finance officers throughout the state of Missouri. With the ever-changing state statutes and rules governing cities, it is vital that someone be kept current on those changes and regulations. MOCCFOA takes this role very seriously and will continue to strive to ensure that the education provided is relevant to the needs and the positions we cover. Additionally, you as elected officials are to be commended for your continued support of Emily as she has worked towards this certification. It clearly demonstrates that you recognize and the knowledge that she receives at the educational sessions is a great benefit to you, other city staff, and your citizens. I, on behalf of MOCCFOA state level and the Central Division, want to congratulate and give best wishes to Emily as she continues her commitment to lifelong learning in this career and service to the city of Jefferson.
Congratulations, Emily. So why don't we come up and get a picture of you up here with the flower and the certificate, and I'll come around here too. Congratulations. Emily did not realize that we were doing that surprise tonight. So thank you for being here.
I'm over today.
Wow. Well,
Good job, Emily.
Awesome.
Now you gotta work.
Yeah, right. Yeah, now you got to work to earn that certificate. Congratulations, Emily. We're very proud of you. And item 5, we have no public hearings. Item 6, appointments by the mayor, and we'll run through that quickly with Mr. Molman.
Thank you. On tonight's agenda are 3 appointments to the Board of Adjustment: Katie Lacey for a full membership, and Adam Cartwright and Roy Mitchell for alternate memberships. And then on the Electrical Exam and Review Board, Jim Gooch Jr. and Ray Fink.
Thank you. Are there any questions or a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 7, presentations from staff, consultants, and invited guests. We have none. Item 8, announcements by mayor, council, and staff. We have our 4 standing committees that you can find at jeffersoncitymo.gov, and we'll run through those. Anything to report from administration? Okay, finance and public safety.
Yes, Madam Mayor. Due to need for a schedule change, the public safety meeting will be Thursday, the 30th of this month, rather than this Thursday. So that's the 30th at 7:30 in the police training room.
Okay, thank you for that
Thank you.
change. And Public Works, anything to announce? Okay. And we do have a brief announcement on the airport event that was held on Saturday. Mr. Smith?
Yes, we were fortunate to have a group put on a Fly into the 40s event at the Jefferson City Memorial Airport. It was sponsored by Veterans United with some help from some local businesses. It was free and open to the public. We had a number of the public attend to have the opportunity to witness some vintage aircraft from World War II. And some of our members of the greatest generation, World War II veterans, had the opportunity to take a ride in an aircraft that they may have trained in whenever they back in the 40s. So overall, it was a great event, some parachute demonstrations, and happy that it came off well. And I think it was a good addition to both the parade and the events at the Capitol.
I would agree. Outstanding. Thank you, Britt. And I have a few announcements. We touched on the 9/11 and Patriot Day celebrations or commemorations that were held here last weekend, and we were very thankful to have that in Jefferson City at the Capitol. They brought the 9/11 trailer, which was really something to see and be able to witness and showcase and learn from. We were fortunate to get that here in our city. And a wonderful ceremony was held at the Capitol Friday night, along with all of the commemorations that we talked about here for last Saturday on the 20th anniversary of the September 11th. So we were thankful to be able to have that right here in the capital city. Also, this past weekend was the bicentennial inauguration. And again, that was a wonderful showcase of the capital city having the bicentennial inaugural parade coming down High Street. And if you did not get a chance to see it, I hope you did. But if you didn't, that has been recorded and streamed online. There were floats from all around the state. So having everybody in Jefferson City for that was just wonderful to see. So, and then of course the Capitol was the highlight that evening with the bicentennial ball and having the celebration there outside and inviting everyone there was just wonderful. And I heard wonderful compliments about our capital city. So we're definitely thankful and proud for that. Does council have any announcements this evening? Okay, and we'll move on to item 9, Lincoln University Student Representative Update. Our student representative, Mr. Stacy Landis, was unable to attend because he is attending the vigil this evening, and he did send his regards. And as we had our moment of silence earlier, we will continue our thoughts and prayers with the entire Lincoln University family. Item 10, presentations from the gallery on specific bills. We do have several people signed up. First, we have with us State Representative, Mr. Dave Griffith, and also former City Councilman. Glad to have you back. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. Thank you for having me here. I know I've only got 5 minutes. I can barely say my name in 5 minutes, so I'm going to try and read from what the script that I have, and I deviate from that as I already have started. So this project that we're going to talk about, that you all are going to be presented on to you later on this evening, is something that has been really in the process of happening for over 5 years. In your packets, you will receive the endorsements that we have from the American Legion, the VFW, the Jefferson City Veterans Council. You'll also find in there an artist's rendering that Randy Allen presented for us to give you an idea of what that is going to look like once it comes to fruition. To give you some history about the National Cemetery, burials in the National Cemetery date back to 1861. The site of the cemetery was given to the city, or given to the federal government by Israel and Mary Reed. And it was surveyed for classification as a national cemetery during the war. However, the official designation didn't occur until 1867. After the war, approximately 250 internments were completed. The cemetery closed in 1969 to regular interments, and it closed to cremated remains in 1996. Current cemetery is on 2.4 acres and has 1,792 internments. Jefferson City Cemetery, National Cemetery, was listed on the National Register of Historic Places in October 1st, 1998. A group of concerned citizens got together over 5 years ago and began conversations with Senator Mike Kehoe, and those conversations really went to Senator Blunt and continued with the conversations with the Veterans Administration. For a number of reasons, in delays and not being able to get to the City Council, we are just now getting all of this done for all this time. And I became involved a little over 2 years ago and started to make phone calls with the VA and the Veterans Commission. The letter was sent to the city stating that the the VA would not open the cemetery for any purpose, for anything, for any reason whatsoever. So I made a phone call to Washington, D.C. and finally got to somebody beyond a clerk and asked the question. I said, is this the closing of a cemetery? You're saying that you don't ever reopen it. Is that part of statute? They said, no, it's policy. And I said, well, policy can be changed. So what our plan is for myself and Leon DeLong to travel from here. Once we have the authorization from City Council to do this, we are planning to make a trip to Washington, D.C. to talk with a decision maker. I feel like that I made a promise to these veterans here in our community and really through all of Central Missouri. And we have about 22,000 veterans in and around Central Missouri. And I made a commitment to them that I would see this to the end. And so I want to be able to sit across from this person and have him look me in the eye and tell me, no, we're not going to do it. I can also tell you that they're not interested in sob stories. They're not interested in all the heartfelt stories that we could tell them. They're interested in data. So we've got data that we're going to give to them, and you've also got that as well. One of the goals of the National Cemetery Administration is to provide eligible veterans with reasonable access to VA burial options. More than 80% of those interred in national cemeteries lived within 75 miles of the cemetery at the time of their death. The percentage of veterans with reasonable access to burial benefits at a national cemetery or state veteran cemetery increased from 65% in 1995 to approximately 90% today. In our area, there are 3 national cemeteries, one here in Jefferson City, which is closed, one in St. James, which is also closed, and one in Fort Leonard Wood, which is open. When a veteran is buried, his or her family want that loved one to be very close to them. They don't want to have to drive all the way to Fort Leonard Wood or to Jacksonville. Many of these, if they're driving down Highway 17, they lose cell phone access, and so it's just not real. It's not safe for them to be able to do that. I will close with when a veteran raises their hand and they join and they pledge to protect our country against enemies, foreign and domestic. We made a pledge to the country. The country also made a pledge to us that they would provide us with a grave, with the closing of a grave, with full military honors, pre-registration for future internments. So every time that you open the News Tribune and you see a flag above a man's or a woman's name there, that's one more veteran that is not going to be able to take advantage of what was promised to them. There's some people here that I'd like to have speak to you, and Madam Mayor, I gave you the wrong name. It's Doug Wright is who will be the last guest to speak.
Okay.
And Doug is back here in the back, but Chris Leichel is a veteran. He's also, you want to go on off of your list?
Yeah, we can. Should I go ahead and we appreciate your comments. Any questions for Representative Griffith? And we can go through, we have Claudia Gooden signed up, and then Chris is the representative from the Parks Commission, or unless he's here to speak on behalf, either way, and then Doug. And then if there's anyone else that I missed that
Okay.
wants to speak, let us know.
Okay.
So thank
All right.
you.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. And also we have State Representative Rudy B. Thank you for being here as well. So thank you. Claudia Gooden is here to speak this evening as well. Sure. Yeah, and you're both welcome to come up together or however you want to do that. Welcome. I'm sorry, Charles. Wait. I
Charlie
gotta
will
get
work.
my
Thank you all for
Charlie. I'm
seeing
sorry,
us.
Charlie. I didn't have my readers on. Charlie. Sorry.
Charles usually, and somebody's looking for me, wasn't looking for me. I'm no longer a citizen of Jeff City. You put a school and a hospital by my house and made it a freeway. So I just live a little bit out of town, but I've been a citizen here all my life. I am a member of the American Legion. I was the commander of the post, the commander of the state, and I've served on several committees all the way to the national level, including the cemetery committee. Believe it or not, there is one. And I know how difficult it is to get this done with the VA. So the boys at the post brought it up, and I said, okay, the way to start is get a resolution. So we did a resolution at the post, run it up the tree through the district, passed the state, and made it to the national organization. So at our national convention at Phoenix just last month or this month, that resolution passed, the American Legion. So it has nearly 2 million members of the American Legion and nearly 1 million auxiliary and 500,000 sons behind that project. So the other thing that means, the American Legion, as most of the other veteran service organizations, has a Washington office. And those people are paid to go to the Hill and push our issues. So once a resolution is passed, the American Legion, it'll never go out until it's completed, retired, or replaced. So our people in Washington will be working on that. The one thing that we could ask this council, if this all gets approved, and we're praying and hoping it does, I'd like to have a place there. I don't really want to go to Jacksonville or Fort Leonard Wood or the old Confederate cemetery, which they're all beautiful. Been to all of them. I'd rather stay here at home. My grandfather, the sheriff, is buried right over in the old city cemetery. So if the city council passes this to make their support known to the VA, that's the way it works. All of these cemeteries we got in the state of Missouri came by people donating land. So it's usually 50 acres that starts. And one of the biggest projects was getting the acreage at Fort Leonard Wood for that. And there's a couple more national cemeteries. One's full at Springfield, and Jefferson Barracks, the only one that's got any grave sites left in it in this state. So we would certainly appreciate you going ahead with this, and not only that, to support it to the VA. That's where the decisions will be made in the end anyway, I think, if we support it here. Any questions of me?
Thank you. Any questions? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your service to our country. Next, we have Mr. Doug Wright. Welcome. Good evening.
Good evening, council. Come on, I met, I put building community bridges, do a lot of networking, and a lot of people build bridges out here, and met with the veterans and everything, and they told me what was going on. And I'm just here to basically, you know, I have sat down with them, and I have sat down with Parks and Rec. I sat down with them and I looked at the plan. I looked at the plan for cemetery. I looked at what they want to do on the other side of the highway. I mean, to me, I'm about building bridges and changing lives. And I look at it like people fight for our country. My grandfather was a veteran. I wanted to go join the service, but I got in some trouble, so I couldn't be what I wanted to be. So I have a lot of respect for these people because they give us this democratic process and this freedom that we got going on. You know, and I'm just here not to have it as a race issue because it's black and white people in our communities. It's Poe living in both of these areas. And it's also black and white people in the, it has been that way for a time. And if this is a policy and this already was a national cemetery, change is happening all around Jefferson City, and the change is for the better. The council is talking about change. The veterans is talking about change. So let us continue to come together and change like we say we're going to do instead of arguing. Peace and love.
Thank you, Doug. Would you like to speak? Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. My name's Gary Kemper. I apologize for not signing up.
No
I sat
problem.
in those staff chairs for a lot of years, and I thought, well, I don't want to make things run longer than they have to, but I do want to just very briefly echo the remarks of State Representative Griffith and Charlie and the neighborhood people. I've got a substantial investment in this community. I've lived here my whole life, grew up 2 blocks from the Capitol. Former police chief. I served I'm former a lot of things. One thing I will never be former is a United States veteran. When my day comes in 50 or 60 years, I'd like my grandchildren and kids to come see me and not have to drive 70, 80, 90, 20 miles to do that. Because that's something that's important to me, and I think it's important to them, and I think it's important to the community. So I appreciate your time. And
Thank you, Mr. Kemper, and your service to the city and our country. Any questions? And Mr. Leichel, did you want to speak, or were you here to represent the Parks Commission on the bill, or?
Either or both. If anyone has any questions
Okay.
relative to Parks involvement, I'd be glad to answer any questions. at this
Okay, we have you signed up, so I know you're kind of in 2 roles tonight, so. Okay, up to you. All right, and then anyone else here to speak this evening? Okay. And then we appreciate everyone being here, so we'll go on to item 11, consent agenda. And Councilman Spencer.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I ask that item E on the consent agenda be removed for further discussion, please.
Okay, so we will do, we have a motion to approve consent agenda item A through D, correct? Okay, and any further discussion, or is there a second? Okay, any further discussion on A through D? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Now we have item E, the compensation study request. Is there a motion to approve item E?
I'll move to approve item E.
Second.
Okay, and further discussion on item E. Councilman Spencer?
Yes, I just think that if we could table this for a while to adequately have a discussion to do a performance and efficiency audit of the government of our city government as well. I'm also been in talks with some county commissioners as well to potentially partner with them about working on a proposal to not only serve and ask those questions of the city, but also with the county. And just like to have the opportunity to have those discussions until we can discuss that matter. I'd like to hold off on item E. you know, just real quick, we've already did a salary study in 2016. We know the issues. I just don't really see the benefit to spend additional dollars for answers and concerns that we already have. So that's just my concern. Thank you.
Okay, so there's been a request to table or not move forward with item E. We do have the motion and second on the table. I don't know the feeling of council, if we want to take an up or down vote, or if the council just doesn't want to vote on it. So I'll certainly leave that up to council, how they want to proceed. So we have the motion and second. Should we just vote it up or down? Any further discussion? Why don't we do a roll, or I'm sorry, Mr. Councilman Fitzwater.
Councilman's couple of questions. Do you have some idea of how you would want to proceed on items that you want to add to it? I assume it's going to add some costs. Do you have some idea of what you'd be looking for?
I wouldn't tonight to give you an adequate answer until I have more in-depth discussions with our county counterparts to see if they would be interested in joining in writing the RFP and scope of services within that RFP, to where, you know, the city and the county could work together and not duplicate services, to where we could enhance services at a lower cost for the taxpayer. So that's my goal, my vision of this additional study.
So it seems like what we currently have is this compensation study through the C. And if council decides not to pursue that, that's fine. And if you have something completely, you know, different and separate, I would recommend maybe working through staff at the staff level as well. That might be more appropriate through the county as well, instead of negotiating with a council member in the county and then bringing it back. Might be the best way to proceed, but I would get some input from our city administrator on that.
Yeah, I would suggest that, you know, there are really two different kinds of studies. I mean, and they may probably be two different kinds of groups doing those. I've been involved with, you know, management audits or whatever you want to call it, performance measure studies before, and they can be very, very involved from a staff point of view too. Part of the compensation study would be recommendations to council on how to fund some of that. So I think that that's certainly something that might be beneficial. I don't remember the time frame on it, but it's certainly not as long as the time frame as a management audit or a performance study would be. So those are probably two different kinds of groups, and obviously the cost would be a big difference too.
Councilman, I saw, let's see, Fitzwater and then Wiseman and then Lester. So we'll go down the line there.
Yeah, I was just going to make a comment to follow up. I mean, I think Councilman Spencer raises some good questions. You know, I appreciate Mr. Kroll's discussion of, you know, whether it's a comprehensive project. You know, I did speak in favor of us doing the salary study as we were going through the budget. I mean, that is important for us to take a look at. I think the comment that Councilman Spencer raised I think it was last week when we heard the presentation on the ice rink. Part of the discussion was, you know, their recommendation on how to save some dollars in Parks and Rec, and I think, you know, they made the recommendation maybe combining some part-time positions. So I think the councilman raises, you know, maybe there are things that we need to look at citywide. So, you know, I think those kind of things are important to the council, whether it's two studies, a combined study. I know one of the things we talked about in the budget process was a concern that timing, so that we can hopefully use this information next year in the budget process. But I think the councilman raises some good questions that we took another meeting to take a look at it and kind of flesh it out before we jump in. You know, maybe we make the same decision at the next meeting, but it at least gives us a chance to look at what those alternatives might be. So I would support his suggestion.
That's right. This came to admin, I think. Didn't it go to the administration committee? Actually, Councilwoman Wiseman and then Lester.
Yeah, thank you. I also don't disagree with Councilman Spencer with regard to a separate and different study, but something that we discussed in the administration committee, because I initially thought we shouldn't maybe be doing this at this time. But this is just a request for a proposal. This is not an acceptance of a contract. This isn't payment for any services at this time. And so I think if we put out the RFP at this time and then Councilman Spencer is able to work on his idea as well, we might be able to have some of those things done in tandem. Further, you know, I have some concerns after the administration committee that this compensation study may take 6 to 8 months, and we may not have that by the budget season next year. And so I think this is a very a timely request, and I think that we need to, I mean, one meeting's not going to be a big deal, but we need to move forward with it if we want to even consider a contract that may have a study available by next budget season.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Lester?
Yeah, I would just say that it's been 5 years or so since we had the last study, and I think so much has changed in that interim that a study is needed. Councilman Wiseman said it's going to take a while to get the study done and the results. And as far as performance study, I think that they're a good idea, but we did just in our next budget approve some electronic measures in finance and human resources that should put those in place and let those run a little bit and see what efficiencies those bring before we do a performance study, I think.
So perhaps for Councilman Spencer's concept, kind of building on what you just said, Councilman Lester too, and what all has been said, that maybe to take that portion, that's different from this, like Mr. Kroll said, it's two separate things. Maybe you bring that to administration committee to discuss that further, because typically when we bring things, let's say to the county, it's more of a collaborative process, like getting direction from council committee or council as a whole, rather than just, you know, negotiating, let's say, one-on-one with them, just getting maybe some direction from council that way. Would that be appropriate to take your concept to a committee to discuss, I mean, line out, kind of give the outline of what you're wanting to accomplish and then go from there?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to present this idea to administration or the admin committee anyway. In fact, I think I did voice it at your last admin committee meeting weeks ago. Last one was across the hall, so it's not a surprise. But I'll be willing to work in the confines of what would be best to accomplish this. I just think you really can't have an in-depth discussion of size and compensation without having an in-depth discussion of where we can make efficiencies, make some staff recommendations. So, thank you.
Councilman Hensley?
I agree with a lot of the comments. These are two different tracks of study. Said I also problem waiting a few more months, letting Spencer's inspiration, seeing if something can be pushed out there so that both items can come back. Meeting in the near future. If it's voted out of that. I don't see any harm in that. Thank you.
And I might ask our city administrator to chime in and make sure we're on the right track and what we need to move forward.
I think that's fine. So essentially saying bring back the discussion at an admin committee meeting and follow that through, and then we can turn whatever that discussion is into an RFP or include it with this one if that's what the decision is. So we take the direction from the administration committee.
Okay.
Thank you.
So With all that being said, there is a motion and second to approve item E. So do we, after this discussion, do we just, you want to vote it down or? Oh, did you want to withdraw?
So I'll move to withdraw my motion.
Okay, and then we withdraw the motion and second. Is that whoever? Okay. All right, so with that, I think we have direction to move that forward. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Item 12, bills introduced, 2021-44.
Ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute an agreement with JCW Boonville Properties LLC for elimination of Westport Pump Station project.
Mr. Smith?
Yes, as the clerk noted, this is a development agreement with JCW Boonville Properties. They are in the process of building the subdivisions on the perimeter of the city. And adjacent to that is a lift station, sewage lift station owned by the city, which is outdated and beyond its useful life. This agreement would partner with that development to, they would have to install extra work, but by doing so that we would be able to eliminate that pump station, which is a maintenance headache, and as I said, beyond its useful life. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? All right, 2021-45.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute a grant agreement with MoDOT for public transit operating assistance.
Mr. Smith?
Yes, as the clerk noted, this is a grant agreement with the Federal Transit Administration for the purchase of two high roof handy wheels buses. As noted, with the check mark on the agenda, staff would request suspension of the rules so we can meet the outlines of the ordering of the equipment and MoDOT as the granting agency. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions or Councilman Fitzwater?
Yeah, I would like to request suspension of the rules so that we can go ahead and third read and act on this item.
We have a request to suspend the rules. Unless there's any objections, we will third read 2021-45.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute a grant agreement with MoDOT for public transit operating assistance.
Any further discussion or deliberation? Councilman Spencer?
Mr. Smith, is this to the two additional units, is that for for replacement or is that to supplement what we already currently have in our fleet?
These would replace two vehicles which have over 200,000 miles on them.
Any other deliberation? Roll call, please.
Fitzwater.
Aye.
Hensley.
Aye.
Kimna. Lester.
Aye.
Schreiber. Spencer.
Aye.
Spicer.
Aye.
Vote.
Aye.
Ward. Wiseman.
Aye.
Bill passes. 2021-46.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri, approving the conveyance of East Miller Park for the expansion of the National Cemetery in Jefferson City.
Mr. Leichel.
Thanks, Mayor. As I said in the pre-meeting, we'll present the city council with the present that we made and the council approved back last year. And we feel very confident in the plan and the staff that we put together will execute. Our desire to provide the very best possible parks we can provide within the confines of our budget. I would like to point out that East Miller Park was slated as part of our master plan, one of the top 5 parks that we were going to address. So if approved, that the money that we programmed for that park go into the relocation in building up a Park Place Park over at over to Elm Street. So we have budgeted and forecasted that in our plan, long-range plan. And like I said, the parks that we would create over on Elm Street would fit very nicely into the data bank or database relative to 10-minute walks of many of the community members in that area. And I would also note that when we did a tour as a part of our park tour that we started a couple years ago, we drove through there on Cherry Street, and as we were driving in the trolley, and some of you may remember, there were about 50 kids playing in the streets. Street. This park was on that side of the street. Certainly benefit those young families in that area, and then earshot of a mom or a dad instead of in a park, playful park, using nice features, play features, water features, restrooms, that sort of thing. Safe environment. Kids in that area feel much more utilized on that side of the street than where it is there. So we feel confident in our plan and have the data to back it up. I'm certainly welcome to answer any questions.
Any questions? Councilman Lester?
Just, do you have a estimated time frame for that Elm Street Park?
That's a great question. Well, obviously, if it's approved and the VA Veterans Administration signs on and is to extend the park, however long that process takes. Again, East Miller Park was a part of our plan and is one of the top 5 on our list, and 3 of those have been completed. So it's still pretty high. It moved up the list, of course. So we plan to do it as quickly as our funding and our capital improvements allotment of funds do that, allow us to do that. So I don't have a specific time frame to give you because it'll be reactionary based on the Veterans Administration approving if the City Council approves the conveyance of the land. But we could do it fairly quickly.
Councilman Hensley?
Thank you. I'm just curious if accommodate this change connected to the existing.
Councilman Hensley, they couldn't hear you over here. You could, on this side of the room.
Okay.
I don't know if your
Is
mic's
anything gonna
on.
happen
Thank
to
you.
East Miller Street? Change in the actual to connect it.
They still can't hear you real well. Maybe pull it closer. Sorry. Just want to make sure you're heard. Thank you.
You guys gonna have to change the street at all? Connect it to the existing National Cemetery? Let's operate, continue to operate city street.
I think that's a very good question, and there's two thought processes relative to, again, final approval. The land is one thing and the street's the other, and I think the veterans group would certainly in favor of the street being included into the master plan of their extended cemetery. That's certainly not as part of Parks and Rec's position or to convey support or anything relative to that. That would be mainly a Veterans Administration in the city willing and agreeing to that sort of thing to be opposed to East Miller. Anything to say for that?
Okay, I'm
from
just
our
curious.
perspective. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Councilman Spicer and then Schreiber and then Fitzwater.
Hey,
So
Chris,
Spicer?
Do we have any idea of what the cost would be for that park over?
Well, if the park's moved over, that would be on the Veterans Administration. That
Yeah.
wouldn't require any funds necessarily from the city. At least not that we know of at this point. But as far as, the park that we've programmed for East Miller Park's about 1.8 million. So we would use that 1.8 million as part of the relocation if approved. Modernizing Park Place Park. And then follow on to that is the 2 courts, basketball courts that would be built between currently Boys and Girls Club and the Link, which Lincoln has been very supportive and wants to go down that road, because once we do that, then the Lincoln can provide for federal grant money to help build the courts because it's now on Lincoln property. So that's a huge advantage for all parties, because during the day they can use it for programming during the summer, primarily of both Boys and Girls Club and the Parks and Rec. And to the best of my knowledge, Councilman Schreiber may know this better than I do, but I've been told that Lincoln's never had outdoor basketball courts on any of their properties. So that's pretty significant too. And like I said, we feel really good to have 2 lighted basketball courts over there and have that programming for both Boys and Girls Club and the Link, summertime specifically.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Councilman
Awesome.
Schreiber?
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Going back to the issue of the street, having been involved in a lot of cemeteries in Jefferson City, various times, including the ones on McCarty Street back to 1998 when we did get it on the National Register. One of the key points is to have appropriate ingress and egress into that cemetery. And that's been an issue for a period of time, including tours that we've taken of the cemetery, so on and so forth. So we would gain approximately the same amount of land that already exists in the current National Cemetery when we get the parks property, if it does go through. So having ingress and egress probably through Miller Street would serve that purpose, so we could have that ingress and egress, which would make it a lot easier. And also it would probably, by obtaining that property for the purpose of expansion of the cemetery, if it is approved at the level in Washington, D.C., it would help solve some problems that we've had in that area at various times as well. So make it a lot safer for young people by actually moving the park. So I would say we need to look very seriously at the issue of having that street become part of that cemetery as well, so they can get into it.
Councilman, or
And also, if I would, Mayor, just also important point is, as most of you know, there's a parking lot at the end east of Elm Street, or East Miller Street. That would not be part of the conveyance. That would still remain city property, and potential for welcome center potentially there if it was decided upon to close that street down. And there's obviously the old fire station there, and I think the museum of the fire station there potentially would present that down the road. So, a lot of moving parts to that plan, but certainly if it got to that point, what a great area to have, because you already got parking already established, and of course the city uses some of that parking now.
Councilman Fitzwater and then Lester.
Yeah, I was just going to make a general comment. I know this has gone on for a while. There's been a lot of individuals involved in it, and I know it's been contentious in the past. I compliment Parks veterans and our legislative leaders, now Lieutenant Governor Kehoe, because there was some opposition. I remember a meeting at Parks where there was some frustration. I think they have done an amazing job of working with the community, and I think the fact that we had no opposition tonight is very positive for our city. This has taken a while to do, but I think you've brought everybody in, and I think it's very positive. So I'm a huge supporter of national parks. My father rests in one in Florida. I think our veterans should have that opportunity here in our community, and I appreciate all the work that's been done. And again, bringing the community in and taking a little bit more time and doing it right. So thank you.
Yes, sir.
Councilman Lester.
Just second Councilman Fitzwater's comments, and just wanted to point out that in the rendition in the packet of park, it looks like shows the street in there. It's toward the last item in that packet. Part.
Thank you, Councilman Lester. Any other comments? Let's see, Councilman Spencer and then Vice Chair.
I just would like to echo a lot of what's been said tonight, but also from a different perspective is that from a safety issue, I did work a tragic accident with a child who tried to cross the highway play Miller Street Park. So if we can relocate that park and serve the mass community that needs to be serviced over there, I think that would be a great thing. And I do appreciate all the efforts in the design. And I saw a rendering of it last week, and it's phenomenal. It's not even a fair comparison of what is there currently to what is proposed. So appreciate all the parties involved to get it to this point. I just would really like to see this come to the finish line with supporting publicly our veterans and giving them a final resting place so that families don't have to endure the travel and those concerns. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Spicer.
I kind of want to echo what Fitzwater said and Councilman Spencer. I'm big with veterans. Thank you, Chris, for working on that. David Griffith, I mean, it's, I come from a military family. I'm a part of the American Legion too. Sons, my dad was in the military. So I would think that everyone on the council up here, I can't speak for everyone, but I know quite a few of them, that there shouldn't be a problem moving on our end. I know on my end, there's no problem, but just need to get the ball rolling. We waited a long time. It's happened. A lot of veterans out there that's been fighting for this, and people that's lived here their whole life, they should be able to be laid to rest here. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Bill 2021-47.
An ordinance of the city of Jefferson, Missouri, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute an agreement with SAK Construction LLC in the amount of $389,631 for the pipelining Meyer, Castle, Allen, and Lincoln projects.
Mr. Smith?
Yes, as clerk noted, this contract would authorize a pipelining construction contract with SAK Construction LLC for a little under $400,000 for lining some pipes in the areas of Meyer, Castle, and Allen in the 3rd Ward, and then Lincoln Street in the, I believe, 1st Ward, if I've got that right. I should have written that down. This, again, is part of our maintenance project. The funds for this would come from the annual half-cent sale, or excuse me, the 5-year capital improvement sales tax, the stormwater allocation. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Councilman Spencer?
Yes, Mr. Smith, thank you. So will some of these within the 3rd Ward be addressing some of the stormwater issues that we had a few months back especially on Meyer and Castle?
Yes, it would.
And will there be a notification within the paper of the addresses or the street location of where those where that projects and repairs will be made?
As our normal process, as we begin construction, we would issue a press release out for the projects. And I believe the contractor would be doing some door hangers for people that are, immediately adjacent to that work.
Thank you.
Councilman Lester?
Just wanted to express that I hope the part on Allen in the 2nd Ward is covered in this as well.
I'm not up on my line between the two, so I could be wrong on that.
Any other questions at this time? Okay, 2021-48.
Amending the 2022 budget by creating one neighborhood services specialist 1/2 within the Department of Planning and Protective Services.
Ms. Senzi?
Thank you. I have a quick presentation. I previously gave this presentation at the Administrative Committee on Administration, and I wanted to bring it here tonight. Tonight I'm asking for an additional staff person for neighborhood services. Neighborhood services, what we do, we implement neighborhood plans. We also do trash recycling, historic preservation. We manage the community development block grant. We also go find grants that incentivize economic development in an effort to create or revitalize thriving neighborhoods. Up on your screen and within the packet is kind of a list of the federal grants that Neighborhood Services has dealt with over the past 5 years. And you can see from 2017, 18, 19, and even 20, it kind of averages around $350,000 a year. Due to a couple of circumstances, including the pandemic, the amount of funds that Neighborhood Services is managing has increased tenfold this year. This year, we're managing about $3.8 million worth of federal grants. Anticipated awards for 2022 is $10.2 million. We are, and that's a rolling basis. So you don't complete a grant usually in the first year. It usually takes anywhere from 2 to 5 years to completely spend through a grant. So what we're anticipating for neighborhood services in FY22 is $13.8 million of federal funds that we are managing. We have 3 neighborhood services staff. And I wanted to demonstrate the need. We have examined our own resources that we have internally before coming to this body for the ask for an additional staff person. We have tapped into the planning division, into somewhat public works, definitely tapped into finance to help us with these funds that are coming. What we've also done is shift funds that we're requesting from the general revenue. So if you look within your packet and then up on the screen, 10530 is the neighborhood services budget that generally comes out of general revenue. Over the past few years, 218,000. FY20 was 216,000. In 21, we spent 188,000. And this year for the 22 budget, for the upcoming 22 budget, we requested about 180,000, just under. So that's demonstrating that we're shifting a lot of the general revenue funds over to the federal side. So we're trying to be efficient and effective in how we spend our funds. Our current staffing, we have 3 people, myself, Ann Stratman, Carly Rankemeyer, and you can see their salary plus fringe and their total annual cost. All 3 of us together total out to $202,758.40 per fiscal year. The anticipated resources that we have coming through FY22, with a lot of these federal grants, we receive either an administration cost. For example, our normal CDBG, we are allowed to take 20% of the federal funds to use it as admin costs to pay for ourselves to administer the grant. With other grants, it can be either program delivery or there's another way that you can build in the admin cost. So up on your screen, you'll see for 22, we anticipate roughly $389,690.95 in admin fees or program delivery fees alone. And again, our staff makes roughly $202,758.40. So the amount available for federal funding is $186,932.55 that can go towards staff time. And what I would like to do is I would like to hire an additional person. If that additional person were to come on, depending on what they came in at and what their benefits were, I estimate that they cost between $50,000 and $70,000 a year at this time, and that's not including projected grants that we could potentially go after or receive. At this time, I could fund that person for 2.5 to 3 years solely out of the federal fund. So what I'm here to do is ask for an additional neighborhood services person, and I would be happy to answer any questions. I know this has got to go through a second round, but you'll see me next time too.
Thank you, Ms. Senzi. Any questions? Councilman Hensley?
I want to make sure. Pre-pandemic, you guys were administering.
Roughly, I can go back to the chart.
Now
maybe.
next with these 3 people.
Yeah, well, so I started with the city in October of 2019. So there were, I think, I know there were some staff vacancies. We've been fully staffed for a year now. So I'm not sure.
So fully staffed means 3.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So you haven't had more than 3, and you didn't have more than 3 people administering $350,000.
I believe that's correct.
Okay, and so you're expecting.
Yes.
And you're.
For now.
Would be federal funds for this specific purpose?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions, discussion? Councilman Spencer?
So, but your projection is only for coverage of that cost, employee cost is 2 to 3 years.
At this time, yeah.
At this time. So, pre-pandemic, grants weren't as grand
Prolific.
or as it is right now. I know it's kind of hard to see into the future when we don't know what that future holds, but one would probably anticipate that we would probably have a reset and go back to pre-pandemic numbers, if you will. So would it be my understanding that more than likely this person would be brought up from another division within planning services possibly, and we would have to hire their replacement too. So it's potentially maybe two staff positions.
I believe there's an opportunity to promote within, so it wouldn't be the creation of 2 staff positions, it would be shift. So we could open it up and somebody could decide internally that they want to promote themselves by competing for the job. And then you'd have to fill that vacancy that they created.
So I guess my concern is that in the 3 to 5 year window, you don't have the admin fees to cover that added staffing position.
Sure. And I think, and it's also important to remember that these funds will they have a longevity. So we have a grant that, the Paul Brune grant, for example, we haven't technically received it yet. But that grant doesn't expire until 2024. So it's a constant rollover. So within the next 5 to 6 years, we'll have federal funds to pay folks. We also anticipate going after additional grants. Some of the grants that are on the horizon include an EDA grant, also a home program fund grant through HUD. There's multiple things that we go after, but I think the root of your question is what happens, because I get this question, what happens when the federal funds dry up, right? So none of these funding opportunities are new. They're inflated tenfold. So for example, home program funds, they normally spend about $4 million in the state of Missouri. This year they anticipate 45 million. That's what's different. It's not, the amount is astronomical, and so everybody's having to scramble to prevent capacity issues. But the funds are always there. They're always there. Federal funds don't dry up, they shift. And so that's something within neighborhood services that we track. That way we can make sure that we're bringing as many federal dollars into the city as we can. Otherwise, they're just going to go somewhere else.
Is there a possibility to where that position could be hired from a third party as an independent contractor, possibly to administer to relieve the burden of you three within that department?
We've asked ourselves that question, and I think other larger communities, especially with the community development block grant with CDBG, the amounts that they received, Springfield, I think normally gets about $8 million a year, and I don't even know how, but they had to bring in, larger cities looked at contracting out to third party. And I think that's cost effective if you are dealing with a large amount of money. Otherwise, you start to get, because when you bring in a contractor, you still have to provide that contractor with the information. And then they don't know the community, they don't know the people that they're dealing with. They know kind of the nuts and bolts of the grant. So you do lose a little bit of intellectual authority, and you're still spending as much staff time while paying a contractor more than what you would pay a staff person.
Mr. Kroll, did you want to add?
No.
Okay, all right. Any other questions? And then Councilwoman Ward after Councilman, or, okay, Councilwoman Ward.
And I don't think you mentioned this in your presentation, but I know several years ago, the Historic Preservation Commission worked really hard to make the city of Jefferson a certified local government. And they did so in order for the city to be able to apply for a lot of the federal grant money for our old historic neighborhoods. And that also includes, the CBDG money that helps our lower income neighborhoods, infrastructure and maintenance needs and all that. So it's safe to say that because we're a certified local government, we're going to continue always to qualify for that type of funding, which, takes staff time.
That's correct.
Councilman Fitzwater.
I was just going to make a comment, and I appreciate the comments that Councilman Spencer made. We're wrestling, and I think I said at the administration, we're wrestling with the same thing at the Pharmacy Association. We've some CDC grants for a number of years. We've got some new potential grants similar to this because of the pandemic, but other opportunities. I think one thing that I think the city is finding, one thing that we've found is if you do a good job with federal grants, They're bringing things to us. So I get the point you're trying to make, that you don't want to build a huge infrastructure that we can't support. But also, you know, I see the other side, you know, especially with what we're doing. You do a good job. They're constantly approaching us. Hey, we've got dollars from this grant that they can't use. Here's a project that we need to do. If you can do it, we can push. So as much as I hate growing government, I think this is an area that has opportunities. I think they've done a good job of some very positive things for our city. So I'm willing to take that risk because I'm seeing it. You know, my board's asking me the same thing. You know, what happens if these? It's just kind of one of those things in this modern era. But again, I can tell you, if you do a good job, they want trusted partners and constantly approaching us about, hey, would you like to do this? So I feel comfortable with them. That's why we pushed it at administration.
Thank you. Any other comments at this time? Councilman Spencer.
Just real quick, and let me be clear. I mean, your department and your staff have done a wonderful job maximizing and stretching dollars and finding dollars. And it's been amazing. And I just wanted to share that. Thank you for doing all that.
Thank you. I would agree. You have with your small group have been pretty dedicated, and we're very lucky. Any other comments? Okay. Thank you, Ms. Senzi.
Thank you.
And 2021-49.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri, amending an ordinance to give the city administrator power to purchase real estate and specifically define situations.
Mr. Molman.
Thank you. This ordinance would change the purchasing code to give the city administrator authority to execute contracts regarding real estate, buying and selling real estate in three pretty minimal situations. Those situations include purchases of real estate or sales of real estate with delinquent tax liens on such real estate, purchases or sales of real estate involved in the settlement of claims by or against the city, and purchases or sales of real estate in the amounts less than $10,000. So normally these types of real estate decisions would have to come through the city council regardless of price amount. So for these types of situations where the city they could be at advantage to acquire some real estate property, not really for the purpose of adding to the city's real estate portfolio, but rather generally to accomplish some very discrete goal. The 805 Monroe example is a very good example of exactly that, where we acquire a property instead of doing an involuntary demolition. We were able to acquire it voluntarily and then use federal funds to demolish the building. And now it's going to go out to a community group that's going to provide housing in a neighborhood. And so that's just one example of this could be used, and just streamlining the process so that the city council doesn't need to see every single one of these of real estate purchases that are of lower consequence and really are more about operations of programs as opposed to, using the real estate for city purposes.
Thank you. Any questions? All right, 2021-50.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute an agreement with Ameren, Missouri for street lighting.
Mr. Molman.
All right, this ordinance would approve an agreement with Ameren, Missouri for street lighting. Ameren, Missouri provides the current street lighting, and the contract under which that is provided is expiring after 20 years. So this would authorize a new 20-year agreement for street lighting with Ameren. The rates are dictated by the tariffs that are approved by the Missouri Public Service Commission. Mr. Smith made a point to tell me that on the staff report, it shows no fiscal information, but of course, the street lighting program costs upwards of, correct me if I'm wrong here, $600,000 a year.
Little over.
Little
Yes.
over. The fiscal note is to remark that there would be no kind of change from the current situation. So I apologize for that, but so we don't get our street lighting for free, but according to tariffs approved by the Missouri Public Service Commission. So I'd be happy to answer any questions on those.
Any questions? Thank you. 2021-51.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri, amending Chapter 18, Section 72 of the City Code to add the offense of trespass in the second degree.
Mr. Molman.
Thank you. This is a change to the city code that was requested by the prosecutor. City prosecutor found a bit of a hole in our city code in the area of trespass, where essentially our trespass ordinance currently is pretty hard to prove up because you have to knowingly show that the defendant knowingly entered and remained in someone else's yard, and that can be a little difficult, and I think there's some posting requirements to go along with that. And so she requested that a lesser offense of trespass on the second be created to address situations where kind of those posting requirements and that kind of purposeful knowing violation of city code was present. And because it is a lesser offense than the regular trespass, there is a limited penalty that goes along with that. Penalty would be no more than $500. The general penalty, just for reference sake, is $1,000 and up to 90 days in jail. So that would not be available for this limited offense. It would be to essentially a fine of half that amount. Always subject, of course, to the municipal judge's sentencing discretion. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. As I alluded to in the pre-meeting, this was an amendment that went through the Public Safety Committee over a year ago, but for whatever reason, never made it onto a city council agenda. So we are just following up and getting this in front of the city council for its due consideration.
Any questions? Thank you. 2021-52.
An ordinance amending Section 8-15 standby on-call status of the City of Jefferson Personnel Policy Manual.
Mr. Molman.
Thank you. This ordinance would change the personnel policy manual to increase the standby pay, which was approved by the city council, or sorry, the budget committee and the city council. So essentially what it does is it increases the per weekday amount from $8 to $16 and the weekend amount from $20 to $40.
Any questions? 2021-53.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute a professional services agreement with Midwest ATC Service for the purpose of providing air traffic control services at the Jefferson City Memorial Airport for the period of January 1, 2021 through March 31, 2021.
Mr. Smith.
Yes, as the clerk noted, this is an agreement with Midwest ATC on a portion of the funds needed to man the air traffic control tower at the airport. The dates being ending in March 31st is the ending of our obligation to help fund those costs. After March 31st, those costs are borne 100% by the FAA. I'd happily answer any questions.
Any questions? 2021-54.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute an agreement with SLB Roofing for roof replacement at Hyde Park and the Jefferson City Memorial Airport, bid number 3185, a budget amendment to allow for the expenditure of insurance proceeds and a supplemental appropriation from the fund balance.
Mr. Smith.
Yes, as clerk noted, this is a construction contract with SLB Roofing for the replacement of some roofs damaged during the 2020 hailstorm. It also includes a budget amendment to allow us to spend those funds that were received from their insurance. And then there is an allocation for there is a supplemental appropriation from the general fund, the fund balance to cover those funds shortfall. And also those funds, some of that shortfall funds will be additional insurance proceeds that'll come at a later date once those projects are complete. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Councilman Lester?
It's really not a question, but a comment. I would just urge the city that And I know it may not be appropriate with this because it sounds like it's storage sheds, but anytime a roof is replaced, I would just urge the city to look at whether solar panels makes economic sense. With my personal property, my return on investment is very good, and I don't even get excellent sun exposure. So I think city buildings that have good sun exposure, when you put a new roof on, should look at solar panels.
Thank you, Councilman Lester. Any other comments, questions? All right. Item 13, bills pending 2021-42.
An ordinance of the city of Jefferson, Missouri, vacating and discontinuing the right-of-way of the 400 blocks of Union Street and K Street and 2 unnamed alleys located to the north and south of 400 block of K Street, and all of the right-of-way of Overman Place, and amending Chapter 19 Motor Vehicles and Traffic by modifying Schedule D one-way roadways, Schedule G stop intersections, Schedule J parking prohibited, Schedule Z residential permit parking zones.
Mr.
Yes, I will not try to repeat all that we put in that title and applaud Emily for being able to read that without taking a drink of water. This bill is to vacate those right-of-ways and ordinances associated with the ground purchased by the school system for the expansion of their sports facility at JC High School. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Deliberation? Roll call, please.
Hensley.
Aye.
Kimna. Lester.
Aye.
Schreiber. Spencer.
Aye.
Spicer.
Aye.
Vogt.
Aye.
Ward. Aye. Wiseman.
Aye.
Fitzwater.
Aye.
Bill passes. 2021-43.
An ordinance of the city of Jefferson, Missouri, authorizing the redevelopment agreement between the city of Jefferson and Central Missouri Community Action Agency for the redevelopment of 805 Monroe Street.
Ms. Senzi.
Yes, thank you. 805 Monroe Street was quitclaimed over to the city. It was undergoing a dangerous building hearing, and the property owner donated the building and the land to the city. We demolished the structure that was on the property using community development block grant funds. We put the request for proposals out. CMCA won the bid. They are offering to pay $500 for the property and redevelop a single-family home, 3 to 4 bedrooms, with a garage, detached garage off the alley. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, discussion? Roll call, please. Oh, I'm sorry. Councilman Spencer.
Yeah, thank you. Is there a breakdown of what the city has actually invested in the property versus?
Yeah, I can pull those funds for you and get it for you. I know that the demolition itself was just under $10,000, but the asbestos removal, I would say it hovers between 12 and 14,000 was the cost, not to mention whatever the lawn care cost for the lot.
But a lot of that was covered through the cost of a grant.
The CDBG funds for the demo and the asbestos removal, yes, lawn care.
So, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I did comment that was huge eyesore in our neighborhood for a long time, and glad to see it gone. Something productive being used.
Thank you. Any other discussion, questions, comments? Roll call, please.
Kimna. Lester.
Aye.
Schreiber. Spencer.
Aye.
Spicer.
Aye.
Vogt.
Aye.
Ward. Aye. Wiseman.
Aye.
Fitzwater.
Aye.
Hensley.
Aye.
Bill passes. No informal items, nothing on the resolutions. Item 16, presentations from the gallery on other topics. We have nobody signed up this meeting, correct? Or this, okay. And item 17, any council and staff discussion of presentation topics. Item 18, new business. We have Mr. Barron will give us a city ward redistrict discussion.
Thank you. So within your packets are 4 different map options to consider for potential redrawing of city ward boundaries. The staff proposal in front of you is, as we presented at past meetings, is basically with these 4 different options. If the council were to choose one, staff would then prepare a council bill and proceed with public involvement, namely some open house meetings, and prepare the redistricting for a public hearing the October 16th, or sorry, my apologies, October 18th meeting, introduce the bill and have a public hearing, and then with potential bill passage at the first meeting in November. We are under a tighter timeline than normal with the combination of delay in census data release and also movement forward of election filing deadlines associated with the city election, municipal elections in 2022. This is a slide that's been used a couple times in past presentations, basically just a reminder of the different criteria that are used in redistricting. There's one item that's included at the very bottom there, and that is the best practice for drawing of city boundary or ward boundaries is generally along census blocks. Also, drawing boundaries along arterial streets is preferred. Above collector streets and say local streets. Having boundaries along local streets potentially divides neighborhoods into pieces. This is the population counts as provided by the census. So there's some 2010 numbers, some 2020 numbers broken out by different wards. And the last column there is the percent deviation showing how far above or below the ideal population within the ward is. There's basically two takeaways that I wanted to present with this slide. One is that Ward 4 must shrink. Ward 4 is the largest growing ward, has been for the last 10 years. That is a recurring theme from decade to decade as the city pursues these redistricting requirements that Ward 4 generally has to shrink because that is where a lot of the development historically has occurred within our city. The second takeaway is that of all the wards, Ward 3 is closest to being ideal. And so with the different mapping options that I'm about to present, none of them envision any changes to Ward 3. And so we tried to lay out a number of different themes for your consideration without overwhelming you with different mapping options. And so we broke it down into 4 different options to present to you. The first option prioritizes the correction of existing neighborhood splits. There's several locations within the city where ward boundaries are on local streets. And so I'll point those out to you with that option and show you how option 1 corrects some of that. Option 2 prioritizes minimal boundary changes. And so trying to shift the least number of people as possible between the wards and still fall within the mathematical requirements of the wards, the math, so to speak. Option 3 is a scenario we put together that envisions growth in Ward 4. Historically, Ward 4 is the largest, the fastest growing ward. There are a number of developments within Ward 4 that have, quite frankly, if they occur today, will result in Ward 4 having a significant increase in population. And then, but that particular option results in a wider deviation between the wards. So we tacked on option 4, and that is the same as option 3, but tries to equalize the wards a little bit more. So option 1 is shown up on the screen. And as I mentioned, there are no proposed changes to Ward 3 within this option. Ward 4 would have 2 fairly large areas transferred into Ward 5. And then from Ward 5, 2 areas transferred, one into Ward 1 and one into Ward 2. So with Ward 4, there's one local street located right there where the ward boundary between 4 and 5 goes up along a local street, Sun Meadow Drive and Overlook Drive. And so this option would correct that within Ward 4. Also, the boundary between Ward 2 and Ward 5 currently goes up Jackson Street. And so this proposal would shift that boundary over to Lafayette Street. And so Jackson Street has a large number of houses on both sides of the street. It would shift it to Lafayette, where there's a university on one side. And so a little bit cleaner of a boundary between wards. And then also the boundary between Ward 5 and Ward 1, it's extremely difficult to see on this map. but actually goes up Houchin Street. And so there's about a block and a half of houses located within this little neighborhood that sit within Ward 5, even though you would have to, even though they're along Houchin Street, literally the neighbors across the street are in Ward 5 versus Ward 1. And so this would establish a new boundary along Bald Hill Road and Atchison Street, all the way up to Locust Street, and then head north, Locust Street being the eastern boundary of Lincoln University. So again, a little bit cleaner of a ward boundary along there. The math is shown in the upper corner, and so it results in a deviation of 5.2%, which is fairly respectable. Option 2, again, is the option that envisions the least amount of movement as possible. And so minimal boundary changes, but still accomplishing the mathematical requirements for the different wards. It still envisions Ward 4 losing 2 different areas. One of them being the area south of Route C, basically at the Highway 179 interchange, essentially all the areas west of Idlewood Road. And also an area north of Missouri Boulevard and west of Dix Road. Areas largely developed with apartments, area that while being a high-density residential area is separated from the rest of Ward 4 by the commercial corridor of Missouri Boulevard. So shifting of that area to Ward 2, shifting of the Idlewood Road area to Ward 5. And then a shift of that same neighborhood from Ward 5 to Ward 1 there along Bald Hill Road and Atchison and Locust. The percentage of 8.2%, I believe it is a little bit on the high side, but it still accomplishes the mathematical requirement of being under 10% deviation total between the highest and lowest wards. Option 3 is the option that attempts to plan for future growth in Ward 4 by shifting as much as can be shifted out of Ward 4 into the neighboring wards. And so it envisions moving all 3, the area south of Route C and west of Idlewood Road, the area and the boundary there being Veith Drive and Satinwood Drive and Stadium Boulevard, shifting those 2 areas to Ward 5, plus the largely high-density residential area north of Missouri Boulevard to Ward 2, plus the Jackson Street, shifting the boundary over to Lafayette Street, and once again, the movement from Houchin to Bald Hill Road, Atchison, and Locust. It results in a fairly high deviation of 7.2%, but it does fall within the math. And so option 4 is
Yeah. So I would say that the primary responsibility is to readjust for previous growth. However, planning for future growth is not something that has to be ignored. And the way to think about this, the census is a snapshot in time of what the population is on a particular date. And that particular date is April 1st, 2020, and it's already September of 2021. And so, as Eric indicated, there are projects that have come online or are very soon going to come online that is going to, add additional housing units and increase the population in a particular ward. And also the patterns of growth are something that the city isn't compelled to ignore. And so that's why we actually for provided this option, because you're absolutely right. There is a chance that after the current projects come online, that there is no more growth in Ward 4, but the city council is competent to decide that for itself, whether or not it thinks that is true and whether or not in its ward drawing exercises wants to account for likely but not guaranteed growth. So that is a item of discretion for the city council to determine, how future-proof we want to make our wards, all within the minimum deviations. And I turn your attention to some guidance that I provided previously. The courts say that what they categorize these deviations under 10%, they'd say that those are minor. So the difference from a legal perspective of a 3%, 5%, 8% deviation all still fall within the realm of minor deviations. So to answer the question, that's up to you.
I can provide a few numbers associated with some of those projects that are going on right now, some of them. For example, the Pringer Ridge subdivision, which is north of Edgewood, just west of Highway 179, a new single-family development that's in progress, 35 housing units, 35 lots. The Ridgecrest subdivision, that's on the former Shepkers Farm property, Ridgecrest, so south of Mid-America Bank and the intersection of Edgewood and Stadium, kind of up on the hill. Now that would likely be a very long-term type of build out, but it has a total of approximately 220 units, triplex, duplex type units, but a total of about 220 is what we identified in our case processing at that time. And then a senior living facility that is planning to start construction soon with about 50 people in it. And so, putting some of that together, there's a little bit of data that points in the direction of tries to quantify some of that growth. All of those projects are contained within Ward 4 outside of the areas that are proposed for movement.
Question.
And then option 4, essentially the same movement of 3 different areas out of Ward 4. This option tries to equalize the different wards. The percentage deviation tries to bring that number down and the wards as equal as they can be. And the way it achieves that is instead of moving the line from between Ward 2 and Ward 5 from Jackson to Lafayette, and instead of moving the Houchin Street neighborhood in that area, it envisions moving Lincoln University from Ward 5 to Ward 1. A fairly large number of people within a single kind of unit there that would accomplish a significant population change between those 2 wards and bring them a little bit closer together. Those are the 4 options we've put together for you for your consideration. The timeline that we propose at the staff level is, so up at the top of this slide is today, September 20th, the work session. Our proposal is for the council to select a preferred option, and then we proceed with creating a council bill on that option and proceed with 2 open houses scheduled for the 2 dates there, September 30th and October 5th, so that we could answer questions from the public and also receive any comments that they have, and then consolidate those comments, present them to the council on their October 18th meeting, along with bill introduction, and have a public hearing at that time. So any members of the public can comment about the preferred option, the bill that is before the council, and then potential bill pending on November 1st. Candidate filing opens on December 7th. And so outside of this timeline, there is a little less than, or about a month to work with outside of the calendar. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Barron. Any questions? Councilwoman Wiseman?
Yes, thank you. I guess this one is more for Mr. Molman. I know that we have a smaller city, and so this may not be as relevant, but do options 2 through 4 meet the compactness element with the Missouri Boulevard section over with Ward 2? It just seems almost a little strung out, maybe.
Right. So I think it does. And all of these things are essentially balancing. And kind of a finger like that, you would, if you were to get challenged and brought it up to a court, we would have to be able to justify why. And so, part of the justifications would include, while it looks like it's immediately attached to rest of Ward 4, it is separated by the city's major commercial corridor. And so, the question then becomes, well, do the people that live in that area have more of a common interest, with some of the more denser parts of the neighborhood that are part of Ward 2, and, likely which you are traveling through to get to that little finger, or, you ask the question, do they have more common interests with the rest of Ward 4? And so you'd have to justify that and show why that was a justifiable move. And you would have to show, okay, here's our population shifts. We have to get population out of Ward 4 from someplace, and this is a good place because of X reasons. The fact that it is a finger that kind of stretches out in there doesn't really concern me too much, because the case law on annexations, which is kind of our best corollary to contiguous and compact, it really kind of defines what would constitute a flag annexation as really narrow, kind of road width type flags. And this is an entire neighborhood. This doesn't really fit within what the courts have previously said constitutes an illegal flag. This is an entire neighborhood composed of quite a few streets and quite a few buildings. I think this finger is very justifiable from a legal perspective, even though it looks a little weird. It's not particularly aesthetically pleasing, but I think it'd be justified.
Councilman Hensley?
Oh, I don't know. I have a question related though to.
Okay, Councilwoman Ward.
Weisman's. Regarding that big long finger, I can't make out street names in there, but I believe, Eric, you commented that there's a lot of housing units in there. Do you mean rental units? Why I ask that is because Ward 2 is made up of over 70% rental. And it's well known that Ward 2 has the lowest voter turnout. And, there's a lot of turnover with rental units. And your comment regarding, God, exactly how you phrased it, like interest. I don't think we should be going for like interest, really. I think we need to go for more diversifying of our wards. I'd almost keep that in for, or give it to 3 and then take 2 in a straight line up 3. I don't know. I can't make out those streets to know who, what exactly is all in that neighborhood, but I'm just trying to think how to diversify. And that's a very long, all the way. It goes really narrow there. I don't know what's all in there. I don't know what the streets are.
It should be St. Mary's Boulevard, but I can tell you that this end, that should be St. Mary's. End of the finger, I don't know that there is anyone that lives there. If this is Missouri Boulevard, between Missouri Boulevard and the highway.
And I can describe that a little. It is St. Mary's Boulevard. It's also William Street, west of Dix Road. And so it is largely apartments. I think there's some condominium style ownership in that area as well, a fairly limited amount. It is largely apartment type of neighborhood. The reason it stretches all the way to the intersection of Highway 179 is because that's where the block boundary goes, the census block. Census blocks are generally drawn along streets. And so in this case, it stretches all the way out there. And so keeping with the best practice of drawing boundaries along block lines. And that's what it does. You're correct. No one lives out there. It'd just be a boundary of a ward.
Well,
if
then
that
why are we
option is
including it with 2 if no one lives out there? Why don't we just keep it in 4 with, if we're not,
It
you
is
know, I mean, that
simply-
just makes a district, I mean, a boundary. I don't know. Just my thoughts.
It's because those are the lines that were provided to us by the federal government. You know, to split a census block involves some guessing on who lives exactly where, because it's also very important to remember that when the federal government puts together the census, it doesn't only include people that live in permanent residence. It includes your homeless population as well. And they go out and they ask, you know, generally, you know, about April 1st, 2020, where are you generally staying? And you know, the answer is, well, you know, I hang out at the intersection of whatever it is, and you know, if I got a place that I kind of camp down, usually they'll mark them as living within that particular piece of real estate. And so you know, to split a census block, it becomes a exercise in the unknown. And where we have finite data, it is a best practice to use that finite data. So I agree, this is wacky looking. But ultimately, if ever challenged, I think there's enough defensible attributes to justify including this within Ward 2. And one of those is just being, hey, the federal government gave us a weird shape and we have to do something with it.
Is that related to this, or why don't we have Councilman Hensley and then?
I mean, this is a really important project. Appreciate all the time bringing these options, different priorities, or how the different priorities were weighted across the. I just personally, I think simplicity is key to me. In this one, and here, I mean, the objectives to me are, from a simplicity standpoint, achieve compliance first and foremost, and then from a continuity of constituent services perspective, because I know we've all developed relationships with the people we serve, to minimize disruption. Those in terms of allowing the maximum number of us to stay in their wards undisturbed. So to me, with those in mind, I mean, option 2, the one that's up right now, strikes me over simplest, achieve, with exception of the, I guess, but we've heard that explanation. I guess we're stuck with some of that to a certain extent. So from a minimal disruption, achieving compliance standpoint, out of these 4 options, I'm support option.
Thank you, Councilman Hensley. Councilman Spencer?
Yeah, and I was just going to say, it looks like option 1 to me might be, just from a viewpoint of a map, might be simpler than 2, based on either if it's an index finger or middle finger. But
it's a very little finger.
Okay, pinky finger. But I just have a question as far as anticipated growth from an annexation standpoint. Does any of these options take in consideration for that potential?
No, we didn't try to project annexation.
Thank you.
And so you presented the different options, or the timeline, I mean, up there. And so you'll have the 2 public hearings, and then you'll bring that information back to us to review from the public hearings to gain that public input. So is it worth mentioning where the information is is it on the city's website so people can review this so they can, if they have input, they can give it?
It is not posted yet, but that is our intent to post it.
What information's
Yeah.
not? This information's on the agenda
It's
with the
on the-
maps. Is that what you mean?
Okay, so they could access it through the agenda. That's
Yeah,
true.
for the maps, not the time frame
Not
though,
the-
correct?
Just the information.
The memo, the content within the council packet is public, but we have not posted a link or any maps for the public directly on the city website. If that's what the question was, like how we would typically seek public comment and put that information out there for public comment, that has not occurred. We would post that on the website, so it's very easy for members of the public to look at this and become aware of the public meetings, the open houses and timeline. That is what we would do.
Councilman Hensley?
Thanks. I just want to respond to council. So what I meant by simple is the back to option larger section being swapped into 5, but then you have this section between swapped into as opposed to option 2. You don't have that neighborhood moving to Ward 5. You don't have neighborhood moving out of Ward 5. Instead, you have this finger from, so to speak, and so that's what I was meaning. Like the smallest number of moving parts.
And I understand. My perspective was just from an aesthetic standpoint. If you took this process out of it, you could almost see option 1 possibly being, that's the way it was done from day one, so to speak. So but I get where you're coming from. Is there any possibility that if we do put these on the website, city website, can there be like a survey monkey where people can engage in giving input from the website?
I don't think there's any reason we couldn't do that. We just have to think about how to organize that in a way that would garner helpful information, but.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Wiseman?
It's going to be my question is, so what action do we need to move one of these options forward to the next step? Or do you just take our comments of, hey, we like this one? Or what are we doing?
Mr. Barron?
So the staff proposal, what we envision is it's a lot easier to present to the public the preferred option. That if the public can see that this is the option that is sitting as the preferred one, we can still have the others in the background so they can be viewed on. People still have some maps to be able to comment on them. But you know, there's a preferred option that's moving forward for official consideration by the council, so that when we bring this back to you at the second council meeting in October, one, we have a bill to craft, and so we would craft that bill off of that preferred option. If the comments come back, you know, very strong that a different option should be chosen, or if there's, you know, desire by the council to shift somewhere, that can still be accomplished, but at least we have a starting point for the council deliberation. That's some of the theory behind how we propose it. You know, once again, their timeline is somewhat condensed. And so if there's any desire to have, you know, some sort of consideration of public comments before, you know, crafting that bill and placing it before you, it eats into some of that timeline and reduces any timeline options on the back end.
Councilman Hensley?
May I propose?
Sure.
Are pulled rounds until eliminating the lowest vote getters or whatever, until or one of the options has at least a majority. I guess it would be majority of 5 or 6, based on the number of folks we have here.
Is everybody okay with running through those 4 options? Okay, so let's put option, Councilman Fitzwater. Is there a mic off? Okay,
sorry.
thank you.
It's empty in here. Closed session. I apologize. It just seems odd to me that we're setting up public sessions, asking for people's opinion as we take one of the 4 options to them, saying, this is our preferred option of the 4. To me, it sends a message that you're more than welcome to give your opinion, but we kind of already selected. Is there a need that we have to do that tonight? And we've got 2 council members absent, and I realize, I mean, it's on the agenda, it's always open, but I was looking at this agenda, I wouldn't anticipate that maybe we were making an action on that. I think I would like to cogitate this a little bit and bounce it around, see what the public feels about it, and then come back versus narrowing it down to 1, saying there's 3 other ones floating around out there, but our wisdom, we have decided this one is the best without input.
Well, I guess there's a few different ways to look at it. We've had the benefit of having the presentation tonight, so we have all the information before us, minus public input, although this is a public meeting, so certainly anyone could have come tonight to comment as well. But we'll have the 2 listening sessions for the public. But if there is one that does rise to the top where council could give reasons that this is why, because it, whatever those reasons may be, I mean, that may help the public too, to hear what council's opinions are. If there is one that rises to the top, if they're all pretty much half and half, then maybe there is no reason to do that. Councilman Hensley?
Thank you.
And then Spencer?
I certainly agree. I mean, picking one. Concern. I think letting the public know after our sort of straw poll of at least I think makes the most sense. I think the harm isn't that. It's non-binding. And voting on it tonight would also simply proceed with the plan. That was the idea. So I totally get where you're coming from. But I don't necessarily see the harm of letting people know stand while they're.
We had Spencer and then Wiseman.
Yeah, and I guess I would kind of agree with both plans potentially of coming up with a rank order from the council of option 1, 2, 3, and 4 of preference, and then but also sharing some of the concern of Councilman Fitzwater of only pushing one out, I think would kind of be disingenuous, so to speak. So I think, if the council wants to rank preference of all 4 options, and that would help communicate to the public, but also say, we want your input as well.
Councilwoman Wiseman?
I think, well, first of all, I echo all those sentiments, but I think our issue is not that tonight. Our issue is timing. We don't have a lot of time to get this done, and the federal government really pressed us up against a wall on this one by not getting out the numbers quicker than they did. And I don't think we have the luxury of first asking everybody. I think in the public, I think that we have to choose one and say, this is our preference, and then say, hey, by the way, there are 3 other choices. Please go look at them, because we don't have the luxury of having 3 or 4 months to look at that. And I think we just don't meet and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Molman, we just don't, I mean, we have to do something by December 1st, right?
If you conduct a municipal election with a known misbalance in population, that bears some risk. How much risk is hard to say. But when you conduct an election and you know that your wards are out of whack, there is some risk for some kind of voter protection or equal protection or some type of risk. And so the staff preference, certainly my preference as you know, in my risk management role, is to get this done before the election. To say that we have to get it done before the election, I can't say that. You know, and if someone were to, you know, challenge that, we failed to get it done by the next candidate filing and we just have to push it into the next year, and someone challenge that, you know, first and foremost argument is we had 3 months to do this and we couldn't do this important process in that short time frame. Court would do with that whatever it is. So just from a risk management, it is better to get it done before December 7th. But if that cannot be done, then prepared to defend it. Rather not defend it if there's any avenue possible. You know, yes, my preference would be to take several months to do this and get it thoroughly, you know, worked out. But that's just not the time frame we have if we want to mitigate our risk.
So if we want to just choose a preferred option that's very clearly only a suggestion only, which it sounds like that's what you said, Mr. Barron, simply a suggestion, and move that forward so at least the public can see after we've had the benefit of this presentation that this is what council's suggestion is, simply a suggestion, and that we're asking for input, make that very clear and get it on the website and get it out, that people can email their comments back, whether it's a survey or just an email, that what option they think.
The idea was because we need information and we need it pretty quickly, the idea of having a preferred option to present to the public is to focus and drive that public comment. You know, if no one in this room likes option, say 4, then, you know, we could put that on the information and say, you know, unless there's a huge groundswell of public participation in support of option 4, it's probably not going to get a whole lot of support. I think that's valuable information to provide to the public in making the comments, because, you know, if I were commenting, I would want to know, okay, what are we actually talking about here? Is it between 1 and 4, 2 and 3? You know, what's going on? The point of the preference is to focus and drive the conversation and hopefully get more helpful information sooner.
Thank you, Mr. Molman. So we have 4 options. Would you back up, Mr. Barron, and just real briefly just show the 1, 2, 3, 4, and then let's kind of get our input.
So again, option 1 seeks to, you know, accomplish the goal, moderate amount of population change between wards. Option 2 minimizes the amount of population while still accomplishing the goals. Option 3 plans for growth within Ward 4. And then option 4 is very similar, but tries to equalize the wards while also planning for the other wards, the other 4 wards, while planning for future growth in 4.
So we could certainly go through each one like Councilman Hensley suggested and raise hands if we want to do polls, or if somebody wants to say, make a motion for a certain one. But it sounds like Councilman Hensley's option might be, make the most sense, so we look at all 4. Does that sound good? Move forward with what Councilman Hensley said?
Yeah, if we're certainly going to try to go through.
Okay, let's do that. So let's start with option 1. Councilman Fitzwater?
Again, I would just make the comment that 2 wards only have one of their representatives here. I'm sure those 2 individuals realized we were going to exercise.
Councilwoman Wiseman?
Well, and maybe they didn't, but I think still this allows for when this becomes, or it allows for public comment, as we've talked about. And it allows for the next time that when it is actually presented as a bill, for somebody to strongly oppose and say, I prefer I prefer option 4 as opposed to option 1. And I know that you didn't consider it, but here's why it is so great. So we're not making a decision today. And I think the other council members will have more, I mean, they'll have 2 more readings. So I think it's appropriate to make a preference level.
Any other direction? All right, so we have the 4.
I'm
Councilman
sorry,
Spencer?
A little late here.
Mhm.
Is there a way we could use technology to our advantage and not do anything tonight, but do something that we can email or tomorrow or?
The city council can't make a decision via email. You can't poll city council members out, action is only official when it takes place in a open session on this type of matter. And so that would probably be a violation of sunshine law if we just sent out an email and said, hey, what do you prefer? And then presented that to the public as some sort of official action. Cases really, really discouraged that type of information gathering from the council as a whole.
And to give Councilman Hensley.
Sorry, if I, would it be permissible or easier submitted that put these in rank?
I'm thinking, reminding us though that the comfort level is that this is simply a suggestion. So it's really not binding. It's only a suggestion only. So it's very,
Trying to get ranked like actual first place votes. We just want to get one.
that at least helps. I mean, part of the whole process is getting it out more public. And so I think if we do make some sort of decision while it's only a suggestion tonight, it might help when we're getting that information out to the public so they have something to grasp a little bit. Maybe. Even though, again, we want to make it clear when we put this out that it's simply suggested and not in any way, shape, or form binding, that it can be changed, and we expect it to be changed. I don't think that we're going to walk out of here that the number 1 suggestion may be the one. We may have public input could sway that. It's certainly an option. Sure.
When you say it was in, talking about this document or?
The timeline, if you want to pull that up.
Yeah, the one for tonight.
Well, for the coming weeks.
I think it was just presented because I think it was demonstrative of what kind of timeline we have and how short of a window we have to actually deal with this. Because initially, I believe that the council work session was supposed to be like a Thursday, but there was a conflicting meeting, and so we chose to have that this evening.
We didn't vote on that time. Still.
Yeah, it was presented and not decided upon.
But it was somewhat agreed upon that was the direction for a path to move forward, though. That's kind of how I took it. Though
Right.
It wasn't
Yes.
necessarily.
More consensus, knowing that we are going to be gathering public input, so wouldn't be any hard and fast decision, but more a guide. This is simply a guide. So knowing that this is a guide and we have 4 options that we like to just use as a guide, and that gives us something to talk to our constituents about as well, and why we think certain options may be better than others. So looking at the 4, why don't we go to option one and see what the consensus is, if there is any, and go from there. Should we try that and see if it works? If it doesn't, we'll never done this before, so let's.
I believe kind of what Councilman Hensley suggested was essentially go around the dais and state your preferred, each council person's preferred option. And if one of them were to gain a consensus, then that would be the choice.
Okay.
And then you could essentially walk through that process for second and third and fourth.
Ryan, I appreciate you attempting.
Okay.
Credit for that. That's not what I was talking about. Let's do that.
I heard it a little different too. But,
Okay.
But whatever. Okay, we'll do what Ryan says. So who do we, you want to start? Okay, Laura's going to start.
I vote for option one because it doesn't have the crazy finger added to two and adding a bunch of rental to the ward. Thank you.
Option one.
Option two.
Option 1 or 2. They don't affect they're both the same for Ward 1. So.
Option one.
Option 2.
Really, it seems like 1 and 2 then, we really had, I mean, option 1 is the clear preferred consensus, with 2 being the second, and then I believe there was, well, I should ask Emily, none. Okay, so that's good to know that perhaps 3 and 4 don't seem to have maybe the value in them that maybe 1 and 2 do. So at least that gives some good direction. So will this help you then with the presentations for presenting it to the public?
Yes, this is very helpful.
And actually, it's kind of already in order, so that's good. You already have option 1 seems to be the one that makes the most sense to the group tonight. Okay, and with 2 being the second.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We'll proceed with the public involvement. We'll be posting information up on the website, advertising for the open house meetings, and prepare council bill for timeline as stated in the presented this evening.
Appreciate it. Thanks for everyone's hard work on this topic. Item 19, we need a motion to approve the closed session September 7th closed session minutes.
So moved.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Lester,
Aye.
Schreiber, Spencer,
Aye.
Spicer, Vogt,
Aye.
Ward,
Aye.
Wiseman,
Aye.
Fitzwater,
Aye.
Hensley.
Aye.
Kimna.
Bill passes. And item 20, any unfinished business, and number 21.
I move to adjourn.
And is there a second? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.